Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week, we'll explore the neighborhood. Things we might not see every day, though we pass by them. Things we don't always pay attention to, as we have this backdrop to our life of the facades of the houses around us, the street we move along, driving or walking, just a little faster than gives us time to take a breath and maybe notice some of those details, some of the oddities and consistencies that exist out there. And we'll do that through what is called a datum, a horizontal line that defines a level at which things generally kind of line up. It's a guide often used in architectural language and design to think about where all the windows may sit, the sills, the roof line, the cornice, and anything else that happens there within a building on the inside or the outside. We'll start there by establishing a space, horizontal layouts that give rhythm to what could potentially become the front of a house. You can kind of imagine anything as you're starting to get into the exercise. A urban row house, a couple of stories, 2 or 3, something tall that we only see just the beginnings of, or an individual unit spaced with a yard between. Whatever you're familiar with works just fine and will fit into the exercise. Once we have that horizontal layering established, we'll look at dividing it up vertically and beginning to play within the zones defined there to bring forth from our imagination and from the structure the elevations of some dwellings. And most of the work will just be adding new horizontal and new vertical lines, layering them, framing them, making them slowly approach something we've seen, maybe reaching into details we can't quite remember, and following them with the line of the pen, up and down, left and right, until we fill in the world, get a little bit of a scene established there. I'll work mostly in elevation, maybe a little false perspective here and there to add some depth, but nothing too complicated. Rectangles and lines. Go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. As a general technique, idea, or warm-up, what we're looking at is establishing horizontal levels of guidelines or general consistency. We'll call them a datum. So we might just warm up by seeing how we can draw a few generally horizontal lines. If they bump and wiggle, it's okay. And they're mostly guides throughout the exercise, and they will transform into others. What you might bring to mind as a bit of an imagination prompter is the street front, whether that's more urban with row houses or more individual, the town scenario, whatever comes to mind for you. And thinking about how these horizontal lines may generally be at the same height for a door, a stoop, a porch, a window, sill or top. They might reveal where the floor is inside. We'll kind of work through the spacing of them, but anything we come up with will just be our way to interface with that horizontalness. Good to get a sense of it right now, just drawing across, as these will become the setup, the register, for how we engage in the other direction. Something like a vertical division we might see. And we'll begin blocking out some details. For instance, a very simple housiness there. Looks something like that. Little curve in front. Perspective or elevation, like flatter, whatever comes. Maybe it'll bounce around a little bit between the two. We'll move to the larger exercise and see on that bigger paper, really taking our time to set up the space and how far we get into bringing something out of it. Because production, a horizontal line or a line relative to an edge can be in itself a bit challenging. It's good to feel out where you are with your drawing hand or engagement. If you have something you can move, finding a direction that's comfortable for you, or if it's more fixed on a table, feeling out how the body can align. It gives you access at a few places across the page, just noticing it as you move, left to right or right to left in that horizontal way. We can always realign for anything else. We're becoming aware of our space, so we're not running into too much friction there. And then just taking a couple of deep breaths to prepare to engage with that larger area of the paper. Settle in. As you feel ready, picking up a pen or pencil you'd like to draw with, or anything else. We can think of this first line lower down near the bottom as being perhaps the edge of the sidewalk or the curb of the street. We'll start tracking it across the page at a pace that you feel you can have some control. And wherever that one is gives us our first datum, the line of interaction. If it's at an angle a little bit, bumpy or curved, that's just what the ground is doing. There are all sorts of ground out there. And we move up a little from that. You might think there's a little space for a yard and then another line or datum horizontal across where the house might meet the grass. The farther this line is from the curb, the more maybe perspective will be there, hill or layering. So wherever it ends up will work out. And keep doing a few of these, thinking about where they are in space for you. So I might say the next one you kind of think about as the height of a porch or stoop. That could be tall. You're used to tall stoops or very short, if there's a couple steps. So you choose wherever it is, and in that moment of choosing from your imagination, take a breath to enter it into the space, find the place on the page. On the next inhalation, prepare to draw the line, and exhale as you begin the journey across. And generally trying to stay parallel, generally horizontal, but any bumps or wiggles just have to do with variation in the scene. And so each line now across, we'll take our time with in terms of the breath, just to set up the structure. Think about where we might be in our imagination working through a house. We can always come back and add more as we go. But if that is the top of the steps, we might have the top of a door a little higher up. Breathe in and exhale through the line. Somewhere on that line, windows might fall, or typically they are a little higher or a little lower, depending on place. So we'll just a little bit up, take a breath again. Follow it out across the page. These long journeys, using our attention, our focus to holding that hand, holding a line, a bead across. And move up a little more. It's the bottom of the windows on the next floor. A little space there for the floor to be, and then an inhalation. And an exhalation out across the page of a new datum. And a little space for that window to exist. Some proportion, maybe equal, maybe an escalation again, just a tad bigger than the space between it and the lower half. An inhalation and a flow. Go up for a while. After that, we may cap off or continue to another story. I think I'll bring it somewhere to the bottom of the roof. Breathe in and exhale a new datum. maybe one more or two, depending on what you're imagining. And scan the mind, working back down again from the top, thinking through if this is the peak of a roof or the top of a cornice, somewhere around the bottom or transition from wall to cornice, the top of a window, the bottom of a window, the top of a window, the top of a door. I might have another bottom of the window take place in there. Typically, I don't go down as far as the door, but we can do whatever we want. We have the top of the steps, the connection to the yard of the sidewalk, and the curve out towards the road. Now, we begin to draw in some of those details, perhaps starting with the curb. Curb is a double line. First, retracing our initial steps, give it a little bit more depth of presence on the page, make that line heavier, become familiar with that place on the paper again. And then with a lot of attention, finding a pacing for you on the next cycle of breath, we'll draw a line very close to that one, just a little step up from the street, breathing in, and trying to exhale along, roughly parallel. People who made the street maybe made it very flat, or who made the curve made it a little bumpy. It's okay if things move across. Then we might start adding in another dimension. We come across and add some lines that are the separations of pieces made out of concrete with that edge. Every few feet, so it can move around, giving it a little definition. If you think about this with a little bit of faked perspective, perhaps there might be another light line just above that top one, barely giving it depth to the edge as it rounds that corner from vertical wall to little horizontal step. And maybe a few more in there. Sidewalk separated by a little grass. A very narrow gap, slightly laid out for us to see depth, with a few more horizontals coming along, bringing in some vertical marks to indicate segmentation of material. We might have time to layer back in texture of grass or something else, but we'll work in the big strokes first, occasionally adding some detail to see what's forming. Now, somewhere along the vertical dimension of the paper, we'll divide this into segments, starting anywhere left, right, in the middle. Feels comfortable to you, we'll just draw a light vertical line coming up from that bottom of the stoop out through the top somewhere, and deciding on a width. Anything work, a wide house, a narrow house, several across, or just one or two. Let the hand find a place for the next vertical line. Breathe in and extend division to that horizontal section of datums. Bring a few more of these to divide the page. They can be even or jump around. Anything that comes to the imagination to play. Just breathing in when you're ready to make the line and exhaling to bring it into action. Finish out a couple more at your pace, watching that inhalation and exhalation cycle. A grid forming there. Begin to work into space and time of the exercise. And I'll look at mine as a little bit of a row addition. So somewhere in one of these columns, choosing a place to put some stairs to step up to a door. Sometimes they're all on the left, sometimes they're all on the right, sometimes they book match or mirror. Something you can explore and experiment with. And start roughly in the center and block it out a little bit, knowing from this datum of the ground to the sidewalk, you may have a wide stoop that goes up just to the top of the stair, a horizontal line bounding some verticals. And here you can add as much detail as you like. To think of it as steps, we can just come in and add some more horizontals. A box divided at an even pace between the top and the bottom to look like potentially a stair. You want to bring a little more to it, give a little bit of heaviness, darkness to the bottom, maybe another line for the material, tracing over the steps individually, adding a little bit of detail, letting them soften or get lighter as they move up to feel like they're receding into space. Perhaps this has a little parapet wall, something just off to the side, goes up a little ways where we could put our hand, and then becomes a railing, finding its own connection to the datums above. And likely it might share one on the other side, and we might find we go past our vertical. They're just guides to help us get started, to think through the spacing. Maybe it shares with the neighbor where it was built first. Spending a little bit of that time entering in to the structure made on the page, imagining some details, bringing them forward onto the paper. And now we have a little platform for a door from this datum to the one we decide is the general height of doors. Usually they're about the same. You buy them at the store. They come in one or two heights in easy ways. But the way we implement it, first maybe a little rectangle, a couple vertical lines bridging between horizontal lines, narrower than it is tall. Proportion, something designed, something remembered. And depending on what strikes you as a expression of architecture, perhaps it has a little bit of stone or something at the top to hold it, the lintel supporting the wall above. Perhaps it has a little bit of a frame around it, a couple more vertical lines unfolding between horizontal datums. Perhaps the door has some windows. Little things filling the space between, thinking about which way it might open, typically letting us into the space, or there may be a knob or some other panels. Maybe there's some space around the door, or some decoration, or another little window to form, to let just a little light in the side. Whatever comes to mind in that space, which we have seen before, starting to solidify something there in elevation, just from horizontal and vertical interactions. And now as we expand out in the context of a stoop thing, maybe there's some windows down lower, basement, maybe there's a little fence that goes across somewhere. That could become its new datum, something we bring across the whole drawing, ties together the neighborhood. Just start with adding layers of horizontal and vertical. See something new. Or if you're a little lower down, perhaps that's just the empty bottom part of the house, the space between the basement or crawl space and the first floor. Let me know, with all this other territory, there's maybe a window or two here, choosing, based on your memory, your preference, whether one or two or three or perhaps a bay. For this one, I think I'll do two kind of normalish windows, choosing again the datum of the bottom. Taking a breath or two and noticing it, imagining where they are, their spacing. If it helps, you could add a couple of light vertical lines to think about where their centers might be, where their edges might be. Feel it out a little bit, but as you feel ready, inhaling and marking that division between horizontals touches the top and the bottom along the lines of the breath. Slowly forming the territory for a window or two. Noticing the spacing, the width, choosing to keep it even, to play with it, designing as you see fit. And once their shape begins to form, we do similar to the door, work our way around, give it a little bit of presence with darker line, perhaps again consistency of the detail, a little stone at the top, another little stone at the bottom to let the water shed. Horizontals boxing in. Local datums. These may be consistent across a row or neighborhood or unique in every case. We take them out and they help guide. We leave them in for the local work with the individual case. And we can work up, down, continuing to consider these things. Here you might imagine a kind of even spacing between the center of the door, the center of the windows. We could take all the way through our house. Take a few vertical marks upward. Choose where the next windows might form. Top and bottom. Tall ceilings perhaps here, some windows that go high up to the second floor. Working for a while in the space you made there, getting a sense of how you'll build out that story, an elevation, things related on a surface that we're so used to seeing all around us. They sometimes become lost in the backdrop of our attention. And you may have questions. Do they normally line up? Are they different? What are mine like in my house? Good opportunity to look closer the next time you're out and around. But for now, we make a decision, see how it looks, feels, implement it, and move to the next. Many spots along the way to try something new, change the style, the technique. This is just a starting place to work the imagination, bring a little exercise, the creativity and attention, the details that start to form what we see around us. And some things have decorative elements between layers, perhaps just a line that comes across some kind of different molding using a datum to identify it. Perhaps there are interesting little panel moments, the windows, looking for anything that can fill in the space between the datums, that zone less constrained, more open to play and invention. Adding edges, double rectangles start to look like materials. The frame sits in the window box, a line across. I think it could open or close. Perhaps some of them are open. Imagining a little world in there as we see shapes become other things. Perhaps there's some curtains. Whatever you start to see in this scene for a little while, let it fully start to build out in our mind. That hand moving, searching for new places to bring details out from the structure. And thinking about where you might add some more. If it's in this house, there's some more to it. We don't have a top, but maybe that just goes off the page. Might not quite have a way to get up to the house. Little sidewalk. Other things you can see here to bring into the drawing. Some of those lower windows we thought about early on, or we work our way up to the roof, leaving as much or as little detail as you like to start to reveal things. For me, I think I'll bring a top and a cap to this, then move to another to continue the play and the exercise. And maybe this one I like with a little bit of a pitched roof. From one datum to another, roughly to the center. Little peak to it. Maybe a fun little circular window up in a small attic space. Reinforcing some of those horizontals and verticals, but breaking them by changing and adding an angle, bringing definition to the side or the edge of the house, completing the form. And again, we could add more and more layers of detail, siding, bricks, whatever we want as the drawing develops, but I think I'll move to the next space. Start imagining fresh. We can draw for a few minutes, just thinking of how the neighbor would situate with this. As we reach towards the end of the time in the exercise, the platform established, the horizontal datums, the vertical resonance or rhythm opens up territory for consistency and for play and variation. We can start to imagine a few different scenarios throughout this little glimpse into a neighborhood, an elevation revealing variety that makes the space around us, and the things that happen in commonality. Floors tend to line up from a certain time, windows doors or heights that deal with the body. And maybe as we draw and try to pull it from our imagination, we also then can look outwards when we're out there in our day, thinking about what we see, where people made decisions, where they sometimes didn't, and bring that into our own inspiration. Feel free, if you like, to keep drawing or to take a break, the pen down to notice what you started, and think about where it might go next. Take a couple of nice breaths just to realize where you are with yourself in space. And then a little wiggle, a little movement, and everything reconnect as you open up and head out to the next part of your day. And here in this exercise that's finding its place on the page, our initial horizontal datums coming from a quick imagining, a quick thinking through the elements that might make up a building we've seen before. We might see that they don't quite correspond to what we remember from reality, or maybe we peek out of a window and notice, oh, there's a little less space there or more space there. No one ever really puts that material there. I've never seen a window with that kind of triangle on it before. But that's just the beginning of awareness. And the more you begin to pay attention to what's around, maybe sketch in the same way we did here, by laying out the rough grid and bounding lines and then filling in the details as you work the drawing from the page, you'll notice the proportions, the systems, the rhythms around you, and maybe other places you travel, and those filter in and suggest things if you want to develop your own scenes, imagine your own worlds, or design something new there on the paper. So I encourage you to take this type of exercise and these techniques out with you wherever you go, whether it's through imagination or observation, as you can start to use a nice, simple, structured drawing like the elevation, clean, clear datums and rhythms, horizontally and vertically, to build a scene. And if you like the exercise, let me know below in the comments what you found, what kind of houses you're interested in, and the materials as they emerge from the page. Give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, and then come back every Wednesday for new episodes of Mindful Drawing. Thank you, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Draw well.